tall poppy syndrome towards me hasn't really been a thing because I don't think I've ever been so big that it's really affected me. And the people that have tried to cut me down are just blatant haters and jealous because they want to be doing what I'm doing, which is where it all comes from, really. But yeah, London was scary. So basically I got over there and I had been given Ronnie Size's email address. And for those of you who don't know who Ronnie Size is, he was like one of the 4 founders of drum and bass, hugely influential. Just casually. Won a Mercury Music Prize, which is like the equivalent of 5 New Zealand Music Awards in one night. From the hood in Bristol, incredible musician, had a live band and still runs a highly influential record label called Full Cycle, which was what I wanted to be signed to, right? So I had ambitions that I was going to go to the UK and I was going to knock on his door and be like, "Hi, I'm Tali, sign me," with a book of songs, I don't know. But I met him in Melbourne, Australia. I had an opportunity where I got to sing in front of him. It was all very like fate, chance, luck, whatever. And then he gave me his email address. So I moved to the UK with the intention of working with him. But I got there and that stupid imposter syndrome, be humble stuff made me go,
you alive?
Yeah, I was like, I can't do it. Just can't email him. So for 2 months, I didn't contact him. I was too scared. I thought that...
But you literally had his personal email.
No. And then I saw that they were coming to London to play a show and I was like, well, I'll message him and ask him if I can get some free tickets. So I was like, hey, can I get some free tickets?
Yeah. Here's my demo.
And he messaged me back and he's like, hi, you're here? You're in the UK? Oh, where have you been? Cool. Okay, come to the show. Here's some free tickets. So me and my best friend Missy, we went along, we got free tickets. We were right up the front. They saw us, they waved to us. After the show, they made a point of getting the security guards to get us, take us backstage. We went backstage and they were like, oh my God, you're here. You know, how long have you been here? And I was like, a few weeks. I'd been there like literally 2.5 months, but I just was too embarrassed to message him. So he took me on to the tour bus. They were about to leave and embark on tour, but they were like, we're having some drinks with a whole bunch of people. Come on the tour bus. So, you know, you go up the stairs, you go on the tour bus, you see all the like sleeper bunks and the lounge with the sound system and the kitchen. And it's like, woo, rock star kind of thing. And everyone's on there and we're all partying. And then Ronnie goes, everybody, I want to make an announcement. And we're like, oh yeah, what's the announcement? So we all quieten down. He goes, this is Tali, the girl from New Zealand that I was telling you about that I met in Australia, and she's going to MC for us. Tali, go. And I was like, what?
You were like, oh shit.
And so DJ Di started beatboxing and I started MCing and the whole bus went crazy and everyone was like, blah, 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 cha, 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 yeah, trigger fingers in the air. And
trigger fingers.
From there, it was just like, yeah, right, call us, come to Bristol, start working with us.
I think a lot of people know the image of Dali much more than the art of Dali.
Yeah.
I could be generalizing it, but I have this impression that because of the mustache and because of him worrying so much about his image, I think a lot of people would identify. And maybe that classic, what's the name of the classic one with the clocks melting? One of probably like, I don't know, maybe maybe it's famous.
Yeah, I know the one
me.
you mean. It's really famous.
Yeah. It's really
I have
famous,
a print of it with it written on for my students, like with the name, and I can't like summon the name myself.
So I would say that a lot of people would relate to some of the artwork. But Lara, could you please tell me a little bit about the importance of Dali? It doesn't have to be like historical. Like if you know a little bit, I would love that. But like for the work that you do and for surrealism.
I feel like, so from what I know, Dali was quite of a pioneer in the surrealism movement back then, along with all like the psychanalysts that were starting to dive into like the subconsciousness and how to access it. And like him and quite a few other surrealist artists really dived into like exploring dreams and the subconsciousness and what's going on in our brain. And so I feel like he opened a new dimension of creating and a new purpose of creating. He had a lot of method and he dedicated a lot of time into researching what you don't see.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't see.
And yeah, it's just yeah, I found it pretty inspiring and pretty powerful. Yeah.
Were there things that when you read or when you found out, you were surprised? Like, oh, okay, this is
I don't know. It's just a cool tool, I would say. Like he just elaborated some really cool techniques and that are just tools to understanding yourself and yeah, diving into the deeper layers of self, I would say.
My Māori friends are like, if you want to know about the culture, fucking haere mai. Like, come on in and what can I tell you? What can I teach you? What do you want to know? Let's get involved.
Tato, eh?
Right. So I think back in the day, there was probably an understandable wariness of Pākehā who were interested in tikanga Māori because a lot of it, there was so much, it was so racist right back then, right? And like, so why would you not be wary? And I remember even like people I knew were like, oh, they're so radical. They're radical Marys. And now I'm like, no, they weren't radical. They were just
Standing up for their rights.
and instilled
Get
in
up,
their culture,
stand up.
instilled in their culture, and also just trying to make a difference, right? So, and yet that was considered radical. Like now, people would say I'm a radical feminist, but I'm not. I'm just literally trying to stand up for women's rights, all women's rights, by the way. That includes my trans sisters.
Kia ora.
So when I went away to the UK, I missed New Zealand. Before I left, I found New Zealand scary. It was on the edge of the world. As a child who often had very dark moments and didn't know that I had this slight little like black dog in my head, aka depression, that would manifest in different ways. I used to feel quite isolated, like New Zealand was on the edge of the world. I would go into the mountains. I would feel afraid. I would feel like the mountains were going to swallow me up.
Absolutely.
I would go swimming in the sea and I would feel afraid. As much as I loved surfing, I also felt very fearful of the ocean. New Zealand felt very wild. But then when I went to the UK, I longed for the UK. I longed to go to London. I was like, I just want to be surrounded by people. I want concrete around me. I want a different kind of culture, you know. And when I went there, I loved it. It was great. But after a while, you know, your tūranga waiwai is calling you home. And I was longing for those isolated snow-capped mountains. I wanted to stand on a beach and see nobody. I wanted to hear a karanga. I wanted to hear somebody speaking in Māori. I just wanted something home. Yeah. And it's in you and you can't deny that. And yeah, and then when I came back, I have like my best friends are like Māori, Tiki, Aroha. They're both Māori. And, you know,
Also fans, so, you know, if you want to have another corridor, we're
About
available.
them.
Just saying.
yeah, and you can't help but be invested in the culture. And now it's different. Now it's much more like, you know, there's no percentage of Māori. If you're Māori, you're Māori. You can still look Pākehā, but you're Māori. You're more welcome to know about, you know, our culture like I'm Māori, but you know what I mean.
Changes in the curriculum, everything, like it's beautiful to
everything.
see.
And even being a teacher, like I remember I was teaching at Sylvia Park School, and I remember the day that my kids found out.
Wait, that you weren't Māori?
Yeah. Yeah. They all thought that I was Māori because of my pronunciation and my understanding and my effort.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the girls goes, "But miss, you have the Māori way." And I was like, "I don't know what to tell you." And then and my other friend was like, "Oh, it's what is it? Kaitiakitanga?"
Kaitiakitanga.
Kaitiakitanga. And she was like, "That's what you have in you. It's like that want to." Is it kaitiakitanga? Was it manakitanga?
Kotahitanga?
Well, the want and the need to understand the culture and to accept it. What is that, Mads? What is that?
Manakitanga?
Manakitanga. Yeah, it was that. But also kaitiakitanga.
You've got an understanding, you have a respect for it, you're instilling as much matauranga that you have instilled in yourself. You're sharing
what I know and what I don't know, I don't claim to know.
Exactly.
I ask questions.
Kia ora, mea hau hoki.
Kia ora.
One of the things that upsets me, it's how the pharmaceutical industry doesn't make things clear about the power of the herbs and power of natural stuff. You know, like everything that they produce comes from natural stuff. How can you shut down natural stuff and say that everything has to go through a process? I understand health and safety, that things have to go through a sort of like legislation, but it's clear
It's a
that
step too far.
if there's no profit, right? Yeah. Do you know like France situation when it comes to that, like to psychedelics and access to herbal medicines and all this stuff a little bit?
We're pretty nah.
I would expect to be really. I would expect to be one of the places to.
Not
know.
really. No, I would say people are pretty like a bit too conservative and scared of like things like that. Yeah, it's already like really hard to find like proper weed, or it's really complicated. I guess a lot of people do like to take drugs in France, from what I know, but it's not something that in the collective consciousness. It's really like people are not really like free to. I think that it's cool. I don't know. Yeah, it's really controversial. Yeah, it's a bit.
It gets like to that hypocrite vibe, doesn't it? Because a lot of people consume, but when you say, "Hey, can we have a conversation and maybe bring those subjects to the table?" People are like, "No, I don't want to talk about it." And like, well, why not? Like, you could be saving lives, right? It's like could be helping a lot of people.
Yeah.
Do you feel like New Zealand is a little bit more progressive when it comes to that, Emma?
Yeah, I think we're getting there. Yeah, and it was a shame with the weed referendum. I know you talked about that briefly with Erica about how, like, I can understand there were people that voted against it because they thought, oh, it's going to wreck small businesses or, like, just small-time growers, and corporations are just going to, like, take the reins and hoard all the profits, and but then it gives everyone, like, I voted for it obviously because I think it's great if everyone can have equal access and grow their own stuff, but I think maybe I don't know if they'll ever do another referendum or if it will just naturally I think it will just naturally become more accessible. And I know that, like, from what I've heard, that, like, our police are more focused on things like methamphetamine and, like, harder drugs because they know it's just a waste of resources.
I said I wanted to be in music, and my mum and dad were super supportive of it, and they were really supportive of it all the way up until I said I wanted to be an MC. And then they were like, what?
Did they know what it was? Like,
not really. And they were like, there's literally nothing in New Zealand for us to use as a reference to this job that you want.
I can't relate to you right now.
No.
What are you saying?
Yeah, so they were like, okay, you could be an actor on Shortland Street or in the theatre. You could be a radio host, which is another thing that Dad really thought that I would be, or a journalist, because I've always been really good at writing, or a teacher, but a drama teacher, a music teacher, or maybe an English teacher if we're really pushing it. So there were all these kind of like jobs surrounding the creative, world.
Options.
Yeah. But it was when I was like, I want to be an MC, that they were like, what the hell? Why? We've sent you to uni, we sent you to drama school, we sent you to teachers college, and you want to be an MC. Like, why? And I get it. I get it now, but at the time I was like, don't hold me back. And you don't understand. But in saying that, they were like, okay, look, you want to go to the UK and you want to be an MC, please just go to teachers college just so that you've got something to fall back on. Not that you're not going to make it. We're sure you're going to make it.
Just in case.
Just in case, go and get your teaching diploma, because I already had a degree. So I went back to I went to teachers college and I got a teaching degree. And you know what? I hate to say it, but they were right. There's been definitely times when I have had no money and teaching has been a fantastic thing to fall back on. When I was in London and I was substitute teaching, it was shit and hell, and I would never do it again. I got sent to the most awful schools in inner city London, teaching the craziest students, children, like devil children, in really rough schools. But, you know, all that shit makes you stronger, makes you tenacious.
And you paid the rent, and here you are.
Paid the rent, and then what I did realise is that actually when I came back to New Zealand and I started working for the New Zealand Music Commission as a music mentor, I'm actually really good at it.
I kind of have a weird relationship with social medias because I feel like I guess it's a really useful tool. Like you can self-advertise and it's cool. Like you get to like see a lot and meet people, and it's really cool. But it also comes with like you have to keep up with the algorithm and all that, and you have to like produce a lot, and you have to, you know, you have to do something that's looking nice, and I kind of see it as a task, and I don't like really necessarily enjoy it. So I wish I would, but I don't. So so yeah, I've got like mixed feelings about social medias. Yeah,
I find it interesting what you said about the process, because I agree 100%, especially as creatives. You don't want to have that thing of like, oh, you got to be there every day, posting every time. You know, like you want to allow your creativity to take you to places. And then I think a lot of artists, I know because I relate to it, you see yourself caught up with the commitment. I have to post something. I have to be out there. But like, am I even producing something cool? Like, what am I looking for? I want to be relevant for what? For who am I? Am I even getting anything out of this? Is it like a quick moment of, hey, 10 likes, 1,000
totally
likes,
can be an ego
100
thing.
messages? You know, like what exactly? Am I just stroking my ego with that?
No, I totally get addicted to the dopamine from the likes and the comments, and it's a good motivator to keep making work. But when you get into that state of like, oh, I have to just keep posting more, and like every week or every couple of days or every day, whatever it is, you can start to lose the integrity of your work and the meaning, and just doing it for the sake of like making content.
Why is reggae so big in New Zealand? Why is reggae so big over here?
Music.
Soul music, right? And it's music of black origin, right? And we have a Pacifica and Māori population here that welcomes music of black origin, right? So it makes sense that another form of music of black origin, which is jungle, dance hall, and drum and bass, eventually drum and bass, would migrate here. Migrate here. And it would be welcomed, and not just by Māori and Pacifica people, but by white people, Pākehā people as well, because that's the kind of nation we are. Like we're small, we're a sponge, we're hungry, we look to overseas to be influenced because we always want to be keeping up with what's going on. You know, New Zealand is a very small country, but no one ever wants to say we're backwards. So we're like, the hot new thing, I'm embracing it. You know, we're very much like that in Aotearoa. And so jungle and drum and bass music was permeating our culture, dance music culture, as much as trance or techno or house was. And along with that comes MCs. So eventually, I mean, you know, first of all, you're going to hear soul singers doing all their thing over house and trance. And then eventually you're going to maybe hear some dance hall reggae MCs, right? And then eventually after all that, you're going to hear drum and bass and you're going to hear an MC. So initially for me, it was, God, I think it was almost like it was the tapes that were getting sent over from London. So there was a radio show in London called One in the Jungle. And they had a plethora of DJs and MCs, Navigator, Moose, GQ, Dynamite. And they had all these different DJs, Brian G, Randall, Jumping Jack Frost, Ronnie Size. And they would record the shows on the BBC. And then whoever it was in London, I got told who it was, but I can't remember now, would send the tape to New Zealand, and then the tape would get passed around the scene until that shit was like, because we were listening to it over and over and over again. And that's where I first heard MCs. And then we started, first of all, we had all genre raves in Aotearoa, and then eventually the scenes started becoming more genre centric and focused. So we started having just jungle and drum and bass parties. And so with that, the DJ's coming out and they're like, I'm not coming out unless I bring my MC. And so you've got to book the MC. So the MC comes out and you see them and then you're like, I want to do that.
You're like, yeah, that's a fucking vibe. Let me
Yeah,
get on that. Let me get on that one.
I always